in the note and would eventually question a known Hollywood actor about Sprangler's disappearance, but no one would be charged with any crime. And although there are many varied theories, which we'll also be talking about, um, concerning her disappearance, such as a botched abortion or her alleged involvement with LA's gangsters, no trace of Springler has ever been found, and her mysterious disappearance remains unsolved. Still can't talk as loud, but that's okay. Hello. Wow, I think my voice is back to normal now. I'm happy with that decision. Um, anyway, welcome back to True Crime Lounge. I know it's been a minute since I've done any podcast episode for this podcast in particular. Um, I do have a whole I am getting back into. I just finished up just a breezy chat podcast, and I'm currently working on getting my other podcast caught up. But today we have a little mini podcast, if you guess if you want to call it, and it's called Old Hollywood Crimes. And we are going, and can you guess why we're talking when I say Old Hollywood Crime? That's right. Today we are going to be talking about Jean Sprangler in a three-part episodes, and I'm very excited about it. Honestly, it's been a minute, and I'm excited. I was getting over a cold last week, so that also delayed me wanting to do it. But last night I was up till like 3 o'clock in the morning working on everything for y'all. That's how much I love y'all. Also, did you see a new intro? I thought it would be very fitting to go with this podcast. I think so anyway. I do have to be at work at 5, so we have some time. Now, I want you to picture this. October 9th, 1949. And like so many other talented hopefuls in Hollywood, in the 1940s, Jean Sprangler wanted to be a star. She had these sultry and big eyes. This testy 27-year-old brunette had eked out a precarious living as a dancer and a bit player in a movie and on TV while she waited for her big break. Now, that one part would get her noticed and launched onto her career. Um, Now, on October 7th, 1949, she would get the part that will make her famous, but it would not be in any movie. As a divorcee, Jean lived in a house in Wilshire district of Los Angeles with her mom, her brother, her sister-in-law Sophie, and her 5-year-old daughter Christine. And at 5 p.m., Jean would kiss Christine goodbye, and tell her sister-in-law that she was going to meet her ex-husband, a plastics manufacturer, Brenner, to talk about the increase in child support payments. After that, she was going to work on a night school for a new film. Wish me luck, she said, winking and left. Now, you're probably wondering, why is this important? Well, you're in a remote area of Griffith Park. And I don't know much about Los Angeles, but Griffith Park has come up from my research from doing Old Hollywood a lot, so just curious, right? Well, if if you're in a remote area at Griffith Park, then you come across a tattered purse. However, it's not just any tattered purse; it is the purse of Miss Jean Spragler. Now, think about this. This was all she was, all she was left of this Hollywood actress and model, and she vanished in her LA home in LA home in her LA home just 2 days prior. Now, among the items in her purse were a handwritten note addressed to someone called Kirk, which we'll get to it eventually, and it was made mention of a doctor, and it was soon apparent that the young woman had been leading a life of secret and no one knew anything about. Now, police began to investigate by attempting to locate the Kirk mentioned in the note and would eventually question a known Hollywood actor about Sprangler's disappearance, but no one would be charged with any crime. And although there are many varied theories, which we'll also be talking about, um, concerning her disappearance, such as a botched abortion or her alleged involvement with LA's gangsters, no trace of Springler has ever been found, and her mysterious disappearance remains unsolved. Still can't talk as loud, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure people at work will love that. But during the 1940s, the city of LA was a dangerous place for young women at night from 1941 onwards. Now, there were many cases of women who were going missing and being murdered. One of the most high profile cases um, was those of the brutal killings of Elizabeth Short, which I have talked about her briefly, so you can go back and check that one out. But she was dismembered and mutilated, and she was found dumped in a vacant lot on January 15, 1949. In August of 1949, there was Windows' socialite Mimi Boomer went missing. 5 days later, her handbag was found. Curious. Probably there's a pattern developing, it looks like. But there was also no trace of fun loving Mimi. Now, it was that same year that Springler vanished without leaving a trace without her whereabouts as well. Now, let's talk about this rising starlet, shall we? She was born in Seattle um, on September 2nd, 1923. Her full name, Jean Elizabeth Sprangler, and her family eventually moved to California, where she would attend Franklin High School in Los Angeles. Now, as a teen, she had danced with the Earl Carroll Theater at Florentine Gardens. Now, upon her graduation in 1941, she would meet Dexter Benner, a manufacturer from whom she married after a whirlwind romance the following year. However, the marriage was not a happy union. Eventually, she would file for divorce, citing cruelty, but the couple continued their own off relationship. Um, and Sprangler would give birth to a daughter, Christine. But on April 22nd, 1944, she would soon find herself engaged to in a long and bitter custody battle with her former husband over their daughter. With Brenner initially granted custody of Christine in 1946, um, with Banner, my bad, initially granted custody of Christine in 1946, he reportedly denied her the right to see his daughter. However, by 1948, the dispute would eventually be decided in her favor. Now, with her background as a dancer and model, Springler was attempting to break into acting. And by 1949, she has appeared to have succeeded in termination, making it to Hollywood, where she was in bit parts in several films. However, she was also appeared as a dancer in several uncredited roles, including Walter Lane's 1948 When My Baby Smiles at Me, the 1949 comedy Chicken Every Saturday, and her last role would be a musical drama of a young man with a horn released after her death in 1950. Now, we gotta talk about her Hollywood disappearance. Well, at the time she went missing, 27-year-old Sprangler lived with her mom, Florence, 5-year-old daughter, Christine, brother Edward, sister-in-law, Sophie, on Colgate Avenue and Park La Brea residential complex near Wilchild Boulevard. And at around 5 o'clock p.m. on Friday, October 7, 1949, she would leave her home in Los Angeles for what would be the last time. As her mom, Florence, was out of town visiting family in Louisville, Kentucky, she left her daughter with Sophie, and they would later tell the police that Jean told her that she went missing with Benner to discuss. She was meeting with Benner to discuss later child support payments. Now Benner said that after the meeting with her ex-husband, Springler said that After meeting with her ex-husband, she was going to work on a night shoot for a film, which she gave no further details, and she can come downstairs, looked at her, and she looked. Now, Sophie will later tell reporters that she smiled at me and then her little girl, and then asked where she was going. She said, going to work. She didn't answer again, but she winked at her and said, it was not for unusual for her to work late in the afternoon and as a bit part for her extra involved in night shoots. So, some 2 hours later, she called home, spoke with Sophie, and asked about her daughter. Tell her sister-in-law that she would have to work the full 8 hours and would probably not return that evening. The next morning, on October 8th, Springler has still not returned home, and Sophie went to the police filing a missing persons report. Um, Now let's talk about the LAPD investigation. Um, so when the police would question Benner about the statement that to Sophie, she was going to meet with him about child support payments, and he claimed that he had not seen his former wife in several weeks. Now, his new wife, Lynn Lasky Benner, to whom he had been married to for a month, corroborated his story. And Lynn was a saleswoman at the farmer's market only a few blocks from Springler's home. And she recalled seeing a browsing around 6 o'clock p.m. and that she noted she appeared to be waiting for someone. Now, um, now, though Springler had told her sister-in-law that she was going to work on a film after she met with Benner, um, police checked the Screen Critics Guild who confirmed to investigators that Springler had a no call work that night, and as well as TV studios who thought they had no record of employment that night. On October 9th, 1949, just 2 days after she vanished, Springler's purse was found in Griffith Park by an employee, Henry Angu, near the Fern Deli entrance of Griffith Park in Los Angeles, situated approximately 5.5 miles from her family home. And there was hoping to find further evidence in the park. A group of 60 police officers gathered and over 100 volunteers searched the the 4,100 acre terrain. Now, but there were no clues where people might there were no clues that were found that might indicate what happened to Springler in that moment was a piece of evidence found by police. Now, um, they were physically remnant, so no trace of Springler could be found. Alarmingly, both straps on the side of her purse were turned, and as it had been ripped from her arm. Now, there was no money in the purse. Sophie told detectives that her sister in law had no money, which she left the house that evening of her disappearance, and then the police ruled out robbery as a motive. Over the course of the following week, Griffith Park was searched by over 200 volunteers and law enforcement. And during the search, one volunteer dug up a denim LA County jail uniform in a shallow hole, but no other belongings Springler is found. Now, because murders of wives are most often than that committed by a person close to the victim, to be a partner, lover, spouse, or ex spouse, many suspected that at the time it was Dexter and his ex-wife, and this was the case of the husband did it. Now, in the case of Jean Sprangler, the person who had the most to gain from her death was her ex-husband. Now, he had once sole custody of their daughter, according to um, those close to the family, and wanted that returned. But that is it for part one. Join me next time as we talk about part two. But thank y'all for bearing with me. I know I've been away for a good minute, and I plan to be back. So, y'all, I have more time now, so I think I can get more going. But yes, y'all have a great day.